Mr. Director, would you take roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, this is your roll call for May 8th, 2024, public session. Chair Schooler.
Present.
Vice Chair Johnston.
Present.
Trustee Danaher.
Present.
Trustee Dufour.
Present.
Trustee Francis. Trustee Jordan. Trustee Labonte. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Trustee McDonald.
Present.
Trustee Parisian.
Present.
Trustee Swan. Trustee Swan. Trustee Swan is online, and so we'll might be having some just some issues with her with the sound. But Trustee Swan is online and has confirmed that she's with us. Student Trustee Ali.
Present.
Student Trustee Verk.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the customary and traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples of this territory. Item 601, the approval of consent agenda items 602 to 603. It is moved by Trustee Dufour and seconded by Trustee Danaher. That the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 602 to 603, May 8th, 2024, as submitted. Would you please cast your vote online? And that motion is carried. Item 701, are there any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing none, we move on to item 801, and we are honored this evening to showcase a couple of our fantastic schools. The first one is Chesterville Public School.
Welcome to Chesterville Public School, home of the Coyotes. We are located in the village of Chesterville along the South Nation River.
We offer both
In
regular
favor
and
of
French immersion programming for students in
and
kindergarten
present.
to grade 6. We pride ourselves in being a small but mighty school where students and staff know each other.
My name's Kaylee and I'm grade 6 and I'm in the portables. My favorite part about the school is probably how many friends you can make and how many new people you can meet.
This helps to create a caring, safe, and inclusive learning environment where students feel accepted, motivated, engaged, and supported in their learning.
My name is Aurora. I'm grade 4. I like in school learn something new and play with my friends. I'm from Ukraine. I'm coming to Ukraine to Ireland to Canada. Our monthly character assemblies give us an opportunity to come together and celebrate and recognize students demonstrating our UCDSB character traits.
The main thing we do in the Student Voice team is we collect data and things we've seen out in the school itself, and we try to see how we can include students more in the situation and make them feel like a safer place in the school and how they can express themselves without feeling unsafe as such.
Targeted and intentional phonics instruction, grounded in the science of reading, is part of all classroom literacy programs to ensure students have the foundation they need to be successful. Number talks, games, and programs such as Knowledge Hook help our students build the numeracy and thinking skills required to build mathematical thinkers.
Well, there's a lot of reasons because it's safe, it's very fun, and also it's kind of fun to learn math and stuff here at Chesterville Public School.
In partnership with our Parent Council, we will be holding a math night where students and their family members can see fun ways the numeracy and math learning can be supported at home.
My name is Abdullah and I'm grade 6, and I love I love playing with my friends, and I love doing math too.
We continue to build strong connections with our community partners. We have organized food drives, held spring teas, and raised funds for Upper Canada District School Board's Champions for Kids, just to name a few.
It's a great place because there's like a whole bunch of people to help you, and if you don't understand, like you have different materials you can use to understand, and other people are here to help.
Our students are working on projects to give back to the community and support those who have supported us. The caring and generosity of our students is something we take pride in. We are also proud of the work one of our classes is undertaking to work and learn from Indigenous cultural advisors, to learn how to be caretakers of the land, and to write a land acknowledgement specific to our school and community. Students have a chance to participate in a variety of extracurricular events, such as talent shows and concerts. We also have a very active sports program, including soccer, cross-country running, volleyball, basketball, floor hockey, 3-pitch, and track and field events happening throughout the school year. Our students enjoy representing our school at various inter-school tournaments.
We look forward to welcoming you to our Chesterville Coyote family.
Welcome to Chesterville Public Schools!
Trustee Danaher, would you like to say a few words about Chesterville Public School?
It'd be my pleasure to say a few nice words about Chesterville Public School. First of all, kudos to Principal Laurelia Hamilton and her staff for providing an unbelievably welcoming school. When you walk in that school, you feel part of that school right away. It's amazing. And at the same time, providing really enriched learning opportunities for their students. One thing I really noticed when I was there and saw and observed myself was the grasp at the real-world learning emphasis that the school's taken on. They have growing things that are working with community in the food bank. They have a scrap of paper and they're working, or a scrap and writing a history of the community. And the kids are learning more and more every day through this kind of real-world learning approach. And it's really impressive to watch. And I enjoyed visiting the school very much. Always felt welcomed at the school. They're working with community groups to enhance the school. They're writing the history of Chesterville with the group in the community, and they're connected to the community. So when you look at the school, you're looking at Chesterville, and that's really, really neat to see. So it's a gem of a school. It's a small school, and it represents the best of the Upper Canada District School Board. So kudos to that school.
Well said, thank you. Item 802, we're showcasing another one of our schools, and this is the Queen Elizabeth School in Perth.
Welcome to the Queen Elizabeth Public School, home to the QES Lions.
QES is located in beautiful Heritage Perth and welcomes families from several surrounding communities, including Lanark, Drummond, North Elmsley, Tay Valley, Glen Tay, and Balderson.
Our school provides French immersion programming to around 300 students from junior kindergarten through grade 6.
Home and school communication is provided in English and or the family's home language.
My favorite thing about QES is probably having fun with my friends and playing outside.
Probably the teachers and seeing my friends.
Students participate in numerous activities throughout the school year, including sports teams, spirit weeks, movie nights, and dance and music workshops.
We also offer a variety of clubs like choir and chess. Each year, all students in grades 1 through 6 are provided with swimming lessons at the Perth Pool.
My favorite thing about QES is probably knowing where everything is and having a bunch of friends at the school.
Playing and eating. Students uphold a variety of leadership opportunities like preparing and hosting students' assemblies, supporting younger students, and sharing their views through student voice initiatives.
Real-world learning projects help support essential literacy and numeracy skills and engages our students to actively contribute to make the world a better place.
Our QES Lions demonstrate kindness, compassion, and determination and are committed to equity and excellence.
My favorite part about QES is probably the teachers because they're like nice and caring.
We have many community partners and several local businesses that help us complete initiatives that promote global citizenship and environmental stewardship.
Our students have visited local retirement homes, raised awareness around the need for clean water within Indigenous communities, and helped to ensure that all members of the community have access to sports equipment.
Flowers and vegetables are grown right in our schoolyard, and our students also maintain a pollinator garden.
A sensory garden is in the works which will provide all students with a place to relax and enjoy the outdoors.
My favorite thing about QES is probably all the nice teachers and doing like gym and stuff. Gym's fun.
At QES, we are fortunate to have a school council team who supports student success in a multitude of ways, including organizing fundraisers, yard cleanup, and sharing their talents through mini workshops and volunteering their time to help supervise special events.
Our staff are committed to creating innovating learning experiences. Daily small group literacy and math instruction provides all students with the programming they need to support their unique learning styles.
The teachers are really nice. They're always there for me, and teachers are definitely my favorite part of QES.
Student wellness is at the heart of everything we do. Our team goes above and beyond every day to ensure that all students feel a strong sense of safety and belonging.
My favorite thing about QES is how supporting all the staff and students are.
I really like how QES has lots of sports teams.
I don't know. It feels welcoming.
I have no clue. I like all of it.
Trustee Dufour, talk to us about Queen Elizabeth School.
Through you, Chair. First, I reached out to Principal Snyder and asked her if she had anything she would like to add, and she said that she is very grateful and would like to convey to the board how proud she is to lead such a wonderful school filled with such dedicated staff, students, and supportive community member. I personally am very honored to say a few words on behalf of the Queen Elizabeth School in Perth. Queenie is a school where the staff foster a love of learning and prepare students for success in alignment with the director's work plan. It is a school where there are high standards for all the students and staff. I've had the pleasure to attend many events at Queenie, and each time I leave the school with a feeling of excitement and gratitude for all that's being done for all the students. Recently, I attended a Walk for Water ceremony led by Indigenous Cultural Advisor Denka Brewer. Students attending the ceremony from QUS and the Stewart School were polite and very engaged in the learning. Queenie is greatly involved in projects in the community, and community partners and families are excited to bring their knowledge and support to the school. I'm proud to be the trustee of the Queen Elizabeth School, a school that prioritizes the safety and well-being of all students and where all stakeholders work together to give a rich learning experience to all. I wanted to say a special thank you to all the staff, the administration, and the families for all you do to support the kids. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Moving on to item 901, the director's work plan, student culture. School climate surveys is the topic for this evening. And to tell us about that, we have Executive Superintendent of Student Achievement and Innovation, Eric Hardy, and Superintendent of Schools, Marcia McNair. Mr. Hardy, I assume you're starting off?
I will, thank you. And through you, Chair, happy to be here this evening to talk about the great work that our students and staff have been doing with the Amplify survey. And we do have some video here. Of course, we'll let the students speak for themselves when we're talking about student voice here as well. Trustees, of course, will be aware of the important piece that the school culture student culture plays in the director's work plan. And the first bullet point in the director's work plan is to develop and implement a school climate survey, which is what we're reporting back on this evening. You'll also be aware that in the board improvement equity plan, we have a goal that 100% of students will report that school is safe and inclusive and positively influences their mental health, wellness, and sense of belonging, which we see as a combination of both mental health and wellness, but also equity as well, which are the two pieces that the students have been working on with their principals and staff. I also just want to note, as per the third bullet point, that this is the first time that we've had all of the K-6 schools. You'll be familiar that we were using this practice in the past. We'd never had all of our elementary schools involved, so we had teams from grades 4 to 6. And I just want to acknowledge how awesome they were. The students were really great. It was a very adult thing I think we were asking them to do, to analyze data and work together, but they were really outstanding, as of course were the secondary students again this year. You will also be aware, trustees, I think, of the board improvement plan and this sort of cycle we have, the we asked, you said we're doing cycle. I think this is really important, and this is us trying to move beyond collecting data to actually actioning the data, which I think is a really important concept, so that when we ask students or we ask staff for the data, we want to report back to them what they said, and then also we want to work with them to come up with a plan to start to move the data in a positive direction. Here are some of the highlights from the spring survey. So this is from the April survey. You can see that the response rate was close to 60%, which is good, certainly, and we're happy with that number. I will point out the sense of belonging. You can see here in April was at 83%, so that's us working our way up towards the 100%. And I'll leave you to sort of review the other numbers. We're not reporting specifically the October numbers versus the April numbers because we are tweaking the survey as we go, as we learn things. You'll hear momentarily that we're going to change things a little bit for the fall as well as we learn about what we're doing, and we got some really good feedback from students and staff about some other adjustments we probably need to make for the fall. But as you can see, overall, lots of really good numbers there in terms of students feeling safe at school, 89%, and feeling a sense of belonging and being aware of mental health services and things like that. Oops, I was going to go twice now. So here are the sessions. So we ran 2 elementary sessions and 1 secondary session. So the secondary session had representatives from all of our secondary schools. The elementary one we split in half. What was happening then when we saw them last time is they then had their updated data from the second survey that they did. All the information and data collated by our research officer, Dr. Kathleen Moss, who's done a great job and who also did those infographics that I showed you a minute ago. Lots of really positive ideas and sharing. I know a number of you were there to get a chance to listen to what the students have been up to and all sorts of creative ideas that they've come up with to move their schools forward. In terms of the afternoon then, a couple of things we focused on. One was asking students what strategies we should be using to make sure that all students are aware of mental health supports available to them. The reason that that's a really important question, well, it's important because it's important in itself, but it's also something that the ministry is going to, has started to track with the student achievement plan. And so that's one of the questions that they are also asking. So we want to make sure that students throughout the province know where they can go. And then the second piece of that, I'm going to click once this time, is we also asked students to write some multiple choice questions that they thought we should consider asking next year. Again, the students came up with a lot of really good questions. They also gave us some feedback on some of our current questions. They pointed out that some of them were probably not quite as tightly worded as they could be. And we wrote down all their feedback, and certainly they were right in a number of cases. And so we look forward to improving the survey next year with all this great feedback that we're getting from our students. And I think this is the video. We'll thank Zach from Communications who put this wonderful video together for us.
So welcome to the Student Amplify Spring Session Student Voice Day in Kemptville. We are thrilled to be here today to hear from students across our district who have been working very hard, setting goals based on data they collected through the Student Amplify survey and creating action plans. Today they're here to share all the great initiatives that they have taken on at the school this year and to plan for next year.
We have started a confidence club in our school. We've made a safe space corner so if you're having a bad day, you're feeling sad, you're feeling stressed or pressured, you can go there.
This year we started an Equity and Inclusion Club within our school called the ECC. It stands for Empowerment Collective Club, and it's been a way for us to start doing a lot more to raise awareness in our school and work on having everyone feel like they belong.
Some of the things we've been doing is over the morning announcements, actually advertising things like faith days of different cultures so that people are aware of what the days are, when they are, and what they mean to different people of different cultures.
This is our student voice box,
where we look at if you feel stressed and do you worry about being bullied at school.
We decided to go deeper into that, so we did what stresses you, do you see bullying at MPS, and if you do, what does it look like?
So for Amplify, we made multiple videos that we posted on Instagram, interviewing teachers and staff from around our school. This was basically to create rapport and connection between staff and students. Yeah, we all brainstormed the survey results that we got. So we just put all that together, we brainstormed, and we came up with this great idea.
So one of the questions on the survey was, do you feel safe at school? And lots of students said that they didn't feel safe at school. So we decided to make a student lounge.
We had the students involved in this, the creation of this lounge by letting them shop for the furniture, construct the furniture, and create a mural so they don't destroy it because they felt like they are a part of it. Less kids are hanging out in the washrooms, and we see almost every day there's 5 to 10 people hanging out in the lounge.
I'm a parent of a student who goes to Naismith Memorial Public School, and I'm here today at the Amplify Student Voice Forum because I was really impressed with the presentation he brought home about what the students were doing and working with the staff to make Naismith a better place. And now I'm here watching the kids do amazing things and being leaders and having discussion with people they don't know and being confident. And it's amazing to watch the efforts of these students be fruitful in their own schools. And the outcomes are higher student engagement, more confidence in the students, and overall kids that are happier in their schools. It's been a really fun and rewarding day for me to come and witness all these students being curious and adventurous and brave, advocating for themselves. They're really learning a lot of life skills, I think, here today.
It feels good to see actual positive change throughout our school because it is smaller, so it's easier to see that change. So seeing that people actually are noticing a difference within the school and are seeing themselves represented is really nice.
It's nice to share the success with the other students here today and the other schools to show that doing these things are possible and that these things can definitely happen.
Thank you again to Zach for the great video. We wanted to take an opportunity right now to showcase a few more schools across our district and highlight the student voice. So over at Caldwell, students have been focusing on recognizing others for positive traits and learning skills. So they made a celebration message box, and the teachers have been giving shout outs to the students, and the Mr. Parks reads the messages each morning on the announcements. And they created a bulletin board, and the students are just thrilled to see this continuing each and every week at their school and recognizing and celebrating and encouraging each other. At Naismith Public School, students were focusing on creating more clubs and intramural opportunities for each other. And so these were some student-led clubs that were created at the school, and they advertised this as well through sign up and created 2 bulletin boards to showcase the students participating in the various intramurals. Next slide is over at Arkland. This was a really neat initiative where this Amplify team took the book, The Best Part of Me, and went to each classroom and shared the book. And then they asked all the students in the school to create the best part of themselves and put a display together at the front of the school to showcase every student in the school and make them feel a sense of belonging. At Front of Young School, and you heard this in the video, they started a confidence club, and they're looking to create a safe space corner for students who are feeling stressed at school, and as well as looking to promote a buddy bench in the future outside on their schoolyard. At Williamstown Public School, the students want to make sure that all students feel like they belong. So another student-led initiative is led by a group known as PALS at recess time. So the student leaders have created fun activities for all students grades 1 to 6 to participate in. And a couple of the students quoted that the opportunity to play with chalk at recess and write on the pavement to showcase what they're all about was key to them. At Winchester Public School, another initiative of increasing club offerings. So they surveyed the students and they worked with teachers who eagerly volunteered to help them to organize a variety of clubs. And the comment back was that sometimes they had so many kids in the clubs, they needed more staff supervisors. At Bridgewood Public School, At Bridgewood Public School, students created a list for both indoor and outdoor play. So they're really trying to focus on what some more activities that could happen in the school. And they wanted to make sure that this was open to both primary and junior students so that they could play together. So that was another very neat initiative that happened at Bridgewood. Over at Cornwall Collegiate, there's been a great focus at that school. They recognized from their survey results that there was a food insecurity. So they created, the student-led Interact Club established a sharing pantry project to address the food insecurity. And their goal next year is to expand that out and build on community partners to help promote their in-school initiative. And at Carleton Place High School, you heard in the video as well, the students were really looking to increase positive relationships and get to know their teachers and staff more. So they created some questions and asked teachers to participate in a video. And then they shared the video on social media platforms. And they created these very neat QR codes so that anyone could click on them and get to know the staff a bit better at Carleton Place High School. Rideau High School, they're looking to create an environment where everyone feels safe and included. They improved some signage in the school, and they spent a lot of time focusing on sharing some mental health resources so that students know who to connect with and where they could go if they needed any further help. They also, too, were spending a great deal of effort focusing on getting to know their teachers better, and they were creating some posters to put around the school about each of the teachers. Again, in Aquay Secondary School, they wanted to find a more effective way to hear the student voice as well as promote extracurricular activities. So they created a confidential suggestion box, and their plans for the confidential suggestion box is to place them in prominent places throughout the school, but they really want to hold a time in the fall where they can talk to students so they can feel confident to put their suggestions in the box and also to further promote extracurricular activities at the school. At Thousand Island Secondary School, students want to feel safe at school, and they want to be able to ask for help when needed. So they displayed a really nice positivity tree at the front of the school, and they also set up a TIS Pirates treasure chest where students who might have needed specific items, they had a place where they could go and they could obtain those items if they wished. At Russell High School, they created their student lounge, but they also created a rewards program where staff were giving students what they called the Wolfie Awards. And when staff noticed students making positive contributions around the school, and then they've been displaying these awards, and they're encouraging each other. So the neat feedback from the students in this initiative was that students were encouraging others to do positive things so they could get recognized. At Glengarry High School, the high school students organized small group bullying seminars, and they coordinated so that intermediate students could participate in the seminars in order to create a safer school environment. And they've continued that they're going to continue that each month. In the month of May, they're focusing on helping the grade 8s with transitioning into high school. And they want to continue and support intermediate students next year with bringing topics of concern led by intermediate students collaborating with secondary students. And lastly, as you've heard through the video and through these few examples, there are wonderful initiatives happening across the district that we're very proud of. Some of our immediate next steps are to take the suggestions, as Superintendent Hardy alluded to, from the students so we can improve our survey. We want to consider incorporating a student written question into the survey, so students might have an opportunity to express a bit more of what they're thinking next year. We will continue to administer the survey twice yearly, once in the fall and once in the spring. And we want to continue, we've had great support across the various departments in the board this year, supporting the student initiatives at the school. So we will continue to engage the departments and have our system staff follow up on any concerns that are raised by students. So I think that concludes our Amplify presentation this evening, and we would be happy to take any questions.
That's great. I'm sure there are some questions. Just before we open it up for questions, I was in one of the schools in my ward last week, and I ran into a young man in grade 8 that I've known for a while. And so I just said, hey, how's it going? And he's kind of a sporty guy. So I figured he'd probably say, well, just started baseball tryouts. And he said, oh, I'm on the school equity team. Oh, that's great. How's that going? Oh, good. We got a meeting this week. So, yeah, I mean, he was super excited about that. So that's great. Any questions? Comments? Trustee McAllister.
I want to thank you and your teams for the work that you've done on this survey. Like some of our colleagues here, I too was at Kempville for the Amplify session, and that was very, very interesting and revealing in terms of what the students came up with in terms of next steps and new ideas. I do have a question though. With regard to the response rate of 41% at grade 9 and 12 and 65.5% at grade 7 and 8. And the same applies to mental health. Only 60% of the grade 7 and 8 students responded, 52% of the students in grade 9 to 12. To what do you attribute that less than ideal figure, and what can be done to increase it?
Yes, thanks through you, Chair. It's always difficult to get folks, whether it's students or parents, as you know, to do surveys. I mean, I think we saw this obviously previously with our We All Belong survey rates and things like that. People are busy, and it's difficult to sort of, cut through the noise sometimes. I think one of our hopes is that as we continue to use the survey in really purposeful ways, as students are actually working with the data, reporting back to other students that they're working with the data, and also as students see that changes are coming about because of the surveys and the responses that students are giving us, our hope is that over time that those rates will continue to go up. I agree with you. I mean, obviously, we would like them higher for sure. Typically, those are a bit higher than sometimes we've seen in the past, and that just speaks, I think, to the challenges that we have sometimes. But we are hopeful that as it becomes an increasing part of our process, I think also students contribute questions to the survey and are really directly involved in that. We're hoping that that will help with those response rates over the longer term as well.
Any other questions? Trustee Swan, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. And I'm just thinking outside of the box here on real world learning and everything we're doing great in our board. And I'm wondering, is there a way to incorporate having students calculate these results, look into these results, and make recommendations themselves? So perhaps we send this to our high school classes as something to do in math, and have them go over the results perhaps for their own school and make suggestions as to how we can get a higher rate of participation in their analysis, because as we said, this is about student voice. And anyway, that's just kind of a question and a comment.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. Through you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a really interesting idea. And actually, we did talk about that a little bit. Because the Amplify survey is does not identify individual students. It's an anonymous survey, essentially. It only identifies your school and your grade. We had talked about whether we might actually release the data files to teachers and students. So you could imagine it making for a very interesting lesson on data management, which, as you know, is an important part of the math curriculum. And sometimes when we do data management in our classrooms, we sort of create data files just to get some data, right? Who likes hamburgers and who likes hot dogs and who likes chicken wings, this sort of thing. And so I think the opportunity to actually use really purposeful data that has been generated by the students is interesting. You can imagine them creating infographics from it and doing other analysis with it. So yes, I agree with you. I think it's a good idea, Trustee Swan. It is something that we've had some initial conversations about.
Two very good questions. Are there any more questions before we move on? Seeing none, I want to thank you both for that report.
Thanks.
We are now moving to item 9.2, and it is the 2024-25 Core Education Funding Highlights. And for this information, we turn the meeting over to Executive Superintendent of Business Services, Mr. Jeremy Hobbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so it begins budget season for 2022 or 23-24 school year in preparation for the 24-25 school year. And while I'm not in a position to bring to you a budget this evening, I would like to share with you a kind of further evolution of what I presented a month or so ago in our sort of crystal ball outlook for the year. The Ministry of Education has released its funding for education for the 24-25 school year. And as usual, staff in the Finance Department are working hard to unpack that and translate that into a budget that we hope to bring forward for your approval in early June. But tonight, what I'd like to do is touch on three major topics. The first one is changes to the structure of education funding in Ontario. What you'll see this evening is that after many years of referring to general legislative grants, for those of you who've been around as long as Trustee McDonald, and the grants for student needs, which came a few years later and have been with us for probably 15 years, there's been a rather significant overhaul to the nomenclature and terminology and structure of education funding, which we'll try and share with you a little bit tonight in preparation to help you assist in navigating your way through budget. We'll touch on some notable changes that we see happening for the 24-25 budget, many of which are related to those structural changes that you've seen in the education funding. And we will give you a sneak peek at what our preliminary analysis looks like for budget for the 24-25 school year. I would say at the start, I'm consider myself terrible at doing this, but I really have to give credit to the finance team, Diana Kingston and Michael Law. When we got this sort of massive change from the Ministry of Education, it was a bit dumbfounding. And, you know, the analogy I would use is we get used to sort of navigating our way like you would if you're driving on vacation, where you get used to, you know, the names of the towns along the way. And this was a little bit like everyone just renamed all the towns and streets and everything. And so we're really struggling to navigate our way through what this means and how it compares to previous years. But they've done like just the volume of work they've accomplished in a couple of weeks, and just unpacking this is tremendous. And so you'll get a flavor for that tonight, hopefully. So just by way of executive summary, the ministry, as I said, has restructured the education funding. So no more grants for student needs. It's now called the core education funding, or core ed, as the ministry refers to it. PPFs, I just learned to say that acronym without actually having it spelled out for me, but priorities and partnerships funding is now going to be called responsive education programs, or REP. Capital funding has been renamed building, expanding, and renewing schools, or BERS. Ron and I can have a debate about how to pronounce that. The ministry has stated, of course, that there will be minimal funding impacts to schools. And in fact, our preliminary analysis bears that out, that I think that we have a stable budget for the upcoming year, with some reasons for optimism in a couple of areas that things are a little better than we expected. And so for 24-25, core ed alone allocations, we're anticipating to be about $415.8 million. And again, that would be equivalent to just the GSN, recognizing that things have moved in and out a little bit. So that's an actual increase of about $10 million over the actual most recent projections that you saw for 23-24 for revised estimates. And so we expect that we'll be able to bring a full-blown budget to you on June 5th. But a little bit about the changes in structure. So education funding now consists of those three major components: the core ed, which was formerly the GSN, responsive education programs, or REP, formerly PPF, and then the capital portion of it, building, expanding, and renewing schools. Just to give you the three major chunks, and we'll really probably be focusing mostly on core ed this evening. So the former GSN, or the new core ed, underneath the former GSN, there used to be 18 separate grants with 77 different allocations. And under the new core ed, there are what they call 6 funding pillars, and within that 28 separate allocations. So the task really, I think, when I heard ministry staff, they were really saying that things were getting confusing and unwieldy for both school boards and, more importantly, for the public who are trying to sort of unpack education funding in Ontario. And it was a real opportunity for them to simplify and streamline, to improve transparency and accountability, and to reduce the admin overhead with sort of managing all of these elements. So I think on balance, I think it's a good and positive change that on the surface makes things a little bit easier for us to navigate. With respect to those reps, which were formerly PPFs, again, there used to be 10 major themes in the PPFs, and the reps, there are now 9 themes. So again, these were the grants that were in addition to the GSN, that were really focused on special purpose areas or areas of policy priority for the Ministry of Education. And what you see, largely speaking, is a strong correlation between old and new, with some changes. And we're still working our way through these, what these changes mean. And of course, as trustees will remember, oftentimes we don't find out what our board-specific allocation is in any of these areas until after the budget ends up being passed. And that's what contributes to some of the changes that you see throughout the course of the fiscal year. So notable changes for 24-25 in addition. And we'll just walk you through some of these, and we'll unpack these in greater detail when we bring forward the full budget. Special incidents portion, or SIP funding, which is near and dear to Director Ferguson and Superintendent Perry's hearts. This is was in the past, I should say, an application-based process where we could seek greater funding based on special education needs. Director Ferguson was instrumental. It seems like it was yesterday, but it was about 5 years ago now, I think, that we went from a few $100,000 a year perhaps to into the millions. And then that's been further augmented by the work of Superintendent Perry and her team. It's looking like it's going to be $7.1 million for next year. There's some recognition that this is going to change. because I think sometimes you can be too successful. And so I think there's some review happening at the Ministry of Education, but they pledged while that review is pending to stabilize our funding. So what we're actually getting is stable funding with some updated benchmarks, which results in a bit of an increase. Specialized equipment allocation has undergone a very significant name change. It used to be called special equipment allocation. That was a joke. And but it's basically now boiled down into two components. There's a formula-based component and then a claims-based component, whereas it was much more significantly a claims-based component in the past. That represents about $1.6 million. I know of keen interest of trustees is student transportation, because I've been here in the past sort of highlighting some of the challenges that we're going to face in the future. It looks like compared to what we had anticipated for 2024-25, things will be significantly better, but not enough to close that gap that we're anticipating still for 27-28. So what you see happening, I think, is the ministry has adjusted their transportation formula to account for some nuances that they've heard from boards like ours, providing funding for things like special purpose vehicles that are needed to provide transportation for special education students and so on. But again, for 27-28, we still do expect to see a really significant and challenging degradation in our transportation revenue. With respect to Indigenous education, trustees may remember last year was the first year where there was a significant change in the way Indigenous ed was funded. And that was, I think, a response to the fact that boards, including ours, had figured out how to double dip a little bit and get some extra funding over top of the former Pupil Foundation grant. And so that was tightened up this year, but there was some transition funding that was applied to assist us in making the transition year over year. And of course, as promised, that transition funding is going away. But we still do have a very significant Indigenous education focus. I would say probably qualitatively a greater emphasis on providing supports to actual Indigenous education students rather than providing instruction to non-Indigenous students about the Indigenous experience. Again, that's something that we knew was coming and is consistent with what we've been expecting as well. With respect to online learning, there's a bit of a continuation of a reduction in funding, but not significant. Again, this is consistent with the direction that the Ministry of Education's provided. It's consistent with phasing in mandatory online learning courses, and those courses come with higher class caps, which results in less funding per student. But again, entirely expected and not really significant for us from an operational standpoint or from a bottom line. With respect to the Safe and Clean Schools supplement, again, I keep saying, I think in my financial presentations, that the funding fire hose that opened up during the COVID-19 pandemic has been tapering off. And even though we're well out of the pandemic, some of that funding has been lingering. And again, about $300,000 per year, specifically directed around things like additional custodial supports for enhanced cleaning and so on, is going to be ending as well for next year. And we don't anticipate that having a material effect on either staffing or our ability to keep schools at a good level of cleanliness for students. There's some technical elements with respect to enveloping. So trustees will know enveloping or sweatering, where we have restrictions on our ability to spend funds. Special education is not, it has always been heavily enveloped and will continue to be, although there's some additional items that are being folded into that special education envelope. The same is true with mental health and wellness. What they're doing is consolidating several separate allocations that sort of touched on mental health and wellness into one major envelope. And we'll be, again, constrained to be making those expenditures for the intended purpose, which is, again, not a problem. Same with student safety and well-being. And while there were some previous restrictions, enveloping restrictions on things like library staffing, those have been, to a large extent, removed, which doesn't necessarily change what our commitment of expenditures will be, but it does provide us flexibility in terms of how we allocate. And with respect to compliance requirements, I know trustees love my little slide. I always end my financial presentations, which that have the gas gauges and the compliance checkoff. As usual, we do have a ceiling on what we can spend on board administration and governance. And that calculation has been somewhat updated, although again, we wouldn't see it representing a material challenge to the board to live within, as we always do, our board administration and governance grant. And there are some new compliance calculations pertaining to student transportation and school facilities. Again, what I would say is that it provides us, in theory, some flexibility, although flexibility that we are probably, from a practical standpoint, not going to be able to easily exercise because we wouldn't be able to move money in huge quantities from other areas of the board anyway. So that's there, but I don't think that it's going to represent an operational or a financial issue for us. So a little bit about the preliminary analysis, and we've really, as I said, although the actual overall budget will be composed of the core ed, the REP, or formerly PPFs, and then separately a capital budget, we're really focusing on core ed for the time being. And so, so what we see happening really is that for 23-24 revised estimates, really what you see is that the total core ed or GSN for 23-24 would have been about $405.8 million, and we're anticipating for 24-25 that'll be up around $415.8 million, or an increase of $10 million or 2.5%. And I think the thing that's important to recognize is that is a really significant number, 2.5%, and we are certainly grateful to the Ministry of Education for providing that. But really what it's allowing us to do is keep up with expenses. So as trustees will be aware, we do have things like Bill 124 remedy that will continue to be a commitment that we obviously flow through to our employees year over year. We have many benchmarks that have been updated to reflect inflationary prices on everything from fuel to the cost of heating our schools. And so really what you see there, I think I would characterize primarily as a reflection of the fact that revenue is increasing to offset inflationary levels of expenses that we're seeing across many parts of our organization. So a little bit just about getting to budget. So again, this is really a highly preliminary analysis, and we'll be obviously bringing you back a full budget when staff continue unpacking it. But I would say that what we anticipate happening is that around June 5th, we will be coming back to you with budget. Just before that, and we're working this out with Superintendent Perry right now, we'll be coming to SEAC for a presentation of the special education components of budget. Then June 5th, final presentation of the final budget to board for consideration. And if necessary, we've left ourselves June 19th. And of course, trustees have it at their disposal that should they so choose, they can call additional meetings to discuss budget if they see fit. So just in summary, I would say that, again, it's been a rather enormous overhaul of the actual education funding and structure. But I would say for all the right reasons, and ultimately once we get through it, I think it'll be better for people who are trying to understand education funding, like yourselves, like us, and the general public. We really do think that we're feeling rather bullish about the overall budget, so we say that core ed will be likely stable. We don't anticipate any surprises when we bring you a budget, and it'll allow us, I think, as an organization to continue the kind of good work we've been doing, and also with an eye to some of the future challenges is continue the work we're doing to plan for those future challenges and deal with them in a graceful way, like transportation. We're anticipating, again, $415.8 million roughly in core ed funding, roughly a 2.5 increase over the GSNs for 23-24 based on revised estimates. And you'll see that final budget or draft budget for consideration at the June 5th meeting based on how things are going right now. And that represents my presentation for the evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Trustee McDonald.
Not a question, just a comment. And just wanted to point out a couple of things. As Executive Superintendent Hobbs spoke about the changes in the names of grants for student needs, priorities and partnership funding, think about the language that's being coming out of the Premier's office and the Minister of Education. Back to basics. Back to basics, core education funding. Responsive education programs means, you know, when they make announcements, they're responsive. Building, expanding, renewing schools, it's the credibility of coming with, well, they're responding to be able to give money. Now, this is not a public service announcement. I'm just letting you know that from a provincial standpoint, we looked at this at Ops Board of Directors, and, you know, the language they've used is aligning with messaging they're sending out to the communities. So sometimes it looks like there's more everywhere, but how you announce it and how you say things has an impact, because when you move it from one pile to another pile, makes it sound like there's an increase, but overall it's neutral. From this standpoint, though, it looks pretty good. The one concern I still continue to have is the transportation piece, and you know, there's work across the province. There was a change or adjustment to make that recognition for those special purpose vehicles, which is important for us. In Upper Canada, we've got a lot of special purpose vehicles, but there's still going to be that downfall, and it will impact us. And you know, there's work afoot to make sure locally and provincially that gets recognized, because in the grand scheme of things, you know, we've seen this in the past just around special education, around high needs amount. All of a sudden, we used to get a pretty healthy balance, and then high needs amount was adjusted, and we got kicked in the shins. Then we've used other tools to our advantage to be able to make sure that we're getting and meeting the needs for kids. Now that's going to be looked at. There's always an opportunity for them to say, well, if someone's benefiting, let's make sure that we redistribute the funds here. So it's good. I'm happy that we're being creative when we look at this. I'm still concerned about some of those impacts that transportation will have and how they may come back and do some clawbacks on the special education side of things when it comes to that. So I think the messaging for us in Upper Canada is that we're in good shape now, but as we move forward, and again, we haven't passed the budget, but as we move forward, we need to do some due diligence and some advocacy work to make sure that our provincial members of parliament are aware of our concerns, and that becomes a focal point whenever they're having conversations at Queen's Park, because a $10 million change or a deficit there for us is a major impact, and we don't want to have that impact anywhere in the schools.
Thank you for those comments. Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent Hobbs, for your presentation. Clear as usual. Oh, you thought I was going to say something else, right? I didn't. I hear various projections for the increase of, 1.8, 2.5, 2%. And I'm not sure what it is, but it still does not account for inflationary costs. And let alone, the rising needs of students post-pandemic. And inflation in the past 6 years, apparently, according to OPSPA, has created a funding gap of close to $100 million for English public schools. And then we have, the transportation gap that is $10 million, which is significant. But I just think, how, inflation is a serious factor in our calculation. It may sound like 2% or 2.5% increase, but in fact, it's not. Not your fault. I'm just a comment, I guess.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, once again, I thank you for that presentation. I know we'll hear from you again soon. Moving on to item 9.3, report of the student trustees. And we call upon student trustees Ali and Verk to present that report.
Thank you. Through your chair. So, since our last report to board on March 6th, Student Trustee Werg and I have chaired a few meetings for the Student Equity Inclusion Committee and Student Senate, and have some updates from the Ontario Student Trustees Association, which we look forward to sharing with you all tonight. And as an addition to the updates shown on the slide, we also held a Committee of the Whole Student Equity and Inclusion Committee meeting on March 7th. Expanding on the meeting now, we introduced the incoming student trustees, Annika Squires and Maheen Riaz, who will respectively serve as chair and vice chair of the committee. We also recognize March as Persian Heritage Month and Nowruz, the beginning of their new year. On March 10th, Ramadan also occurred. Ramadan is the ninth month of the Islamic calendar, which marks a month of fasting from sunrise to sunset, and is an important time of holidays and events for Muslims, as Eid also occurs at the end. At this meeting, we also spoke on multicultural affairs. The majority of the UCDSB schools are classified as rural, and we discussed how planning these events and connecting with the unique cultural heritage present in the school, alongside researching different cultures and nationalities, will nonetheless foster an environment that honors differences and will create a more fun and encouraging atmosphere to learn. In this meeting, we also discussed how to commence equity groups within schools and the importance in creating safe spaces for students. The UCDSB Ambassadors Program was also introduced by Director Ferguson and Principal of Equity and Inclusion, Dan McRae. This program that serves as a key in welcoming and ensuring international students feel a sense of belonging in their schools and communities was presented to the committee, and who was followed by a Q&A period in which the equity representatives had a lot of questions on how they can introduce this program within their own schools and how they can receive supports from the program. So that was a really cool thing, and we appreciate Director Ferguson presenting that to our committee. On March 20th, we also held our Student Senate supplementary meeting, which was the third one. It was online through Teams. On March 21st, we had a Student Equity Inclusion Committee group breakouts, which we'll expand on further. And then on April 10th, we also had a Student Senate meeting online as well.
On the 11th, we continued with our regular Student Equity and Inclusion meeting online. On April 13th and 14th, I had the opportunity to join our Asta ACO April leadership team for a meeting to discuss planning for our upcoming conference in Toronto. And May 1st, most recently, we had our in-person Student Senate regular meeting taking place in Kemptville, which we'll expand upon in a bit as well.
So on March 20th, online and through Teams, we held our Student Senate supplementary, our third meeting, and Student Senate hosted its meeting, and a motion was carried there to declare the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario as the official fundraising partner for our school's Student Senate fundraising event this year, and specifically dedicated towards youth mental health services. Discussions were also held on school-specific plans for fundraising. An initial goal of $5,000 was set for May 1st, which you have an exciting update as well to share on later. And an open discussion was also had on Senate outreach, emphasizing that senators are able to coordinate with ourselves to send photos and videos of their events, so we may do a social media blast of the school's fundraising events.
And discussion was also held on Senate merchandise and different clothing that we could do, which was distributed at our next in-person meeting in May. As you might notice, I have decided to ditch the usual suit and tie to kind of show off the wonderful merchandise that we have distributed to our student senators. It's a nice champion hoodie with embroidery done, as well as students' names on the sides. So, it was great to be able to have some student opinion on that. And ultimately, all the senators were very receptive in May once it was shipped out to everybody. Moving on from there, we did another supplementary meeting in April with discussions held on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and its promotion within schools, coding initiatives, and the use of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of work that was done within schools, a bit of force across the great distance of our board. That was a joke. And then additional discussion done on schools promoting environmentalism during Earth Month. As well as some general plenary discussion items held to speak about our Student Senate fundraiser and in-person Senate meeting in May. Speaking to the discussions on STEM, many students did share a lot of initiatives where they were promoting, science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. I remember one instance, I believe it was either North Dundas or North Grenville, they're both North, but they did showcase their STEM fair where they had different students come in, and it was a wonderful opportunity for them to get to know the different opportunities there are in science and technology. A few student senators did speak as well to the presence of science fairs within their local communities and how they can encourage students to get involved in those as well. Some students did recognize also the need to introduce additional coding initiatives within classrooms, and there was discussion held on that as well. Moving in, away from the screen, away from the circles with names on them, we finally had the opportunity to do another in-person meeting in Kemptville with all of our student senators with breakout discussions on advice and Senate priorities for next year. Students did a great breakout discussion on their experience in online classes, as well as student involvement in school activities more generally. While we have noticed a bit of a rebound coming in from the pandemic in student engagement, student involvement in activities, many senators did remark that there is still a huge difference from when we first, before the pandemic in and of itself. And a lot of work has been made to get students continue to be engaged within classrooms, but many senators did still recognize that it is very crucial to help engage some of the younger students, the grade 7, the 8 students within their high schools, just because they did miss a crucial period of social development within their own school settings. And as long as we can empower them to continue to become leaders, within their own respective ways, that'll ensure that they still want to continue that route of advocacy, student involvement, and helping make their school a better place. So a lot of emphasis was placed on ensuring that the younger grades, grade 7 and 8 students, feel, involved and supported within their schools. Speaking to students' experiences in online classes, a lot of our student senate is mainly composed of grade 11 and 12 students who do partake in many online classes. Some have remarked that due to the current offering of online classes within their schools, some do partake in school involvement, but the fact that many of their classes have been moved to online does present a bit of an issue for them to be completely involved within their classrooms. Moving on from there, a workshop was held by the CHEO Foundation on mental health, as well as supporting others who might need help within their respective communities. That was hosted by a few of the individuals from the CHEO Foundation who were great guests and were able to engage most of our students and really help them understand what it might be to approach people who do have concerns about other individuals within their school.
Okay. So we also had a consultation period between Sanders and Lisa Livingston, the UCDSB mental health lead, on the board's proposed 3-year mental health plan and addiction strategy. Following the consultation period, Sanders were asked regarding if they received any opportunities to engage in mental health education and social emotional learning in their schools and classrooms. There's also an opportunity to provide feedback on how the UCDSB can promote and embed mental health and social emotional learning at school. And a lot of senators also spoke about their personal experiences and whether they feel safe or comfortable asking for help within their school environment and their school settings. And a lot of senators did agree that they do have at least one individual that they would feel comfortable speaking to, that is a staff. However, a lot also indicated the need for a safe space for students to kind of just go and have a moment to themselves and reflect on the circumstance that may have led to a bit of a crisis or a bit of a moment. And this meeting also featured a presentation from Cam Jones, Principal of Student Success, on UCDSB grows and environmentally centered real-world learning projects across the board. So the importance of environmental projects was brought forward, indicating their support of sustainability, the ability to encourage student leadership, as many of these projects are led by students and started by student interest. And there's also opportunities of collaboration between the board, school leads, students, and community sports. Senators were then also able to ask questions regarding sustainability, recycling within schools, and inquire about the presence of commencing projects and greenhouse initiatives within their respective communities.
And I just wanted to point out one last thing in the bottom right corner of our screen. We did have our trustee liaison officer, Lisa Workman, bring in a cake for the senators. The outcome of that cake will remain confidential to our board, but for the most part, it just shows that even small gestures like these by our board staff do help elevate our own student experiences within our meetings, and it's those little details that really make students feel appreciated. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. Going on to an important little announcement that we have.
Okay, so at our May Student Senate meeting, it was announced that our Senate had reached its fundraising goal of $5,000 and further had passed it. We had officially raised $5,196.15. And we are incredibly proud of our senators and their school communities for the unique, and there were truly some very unique fundraising events and their successful leadership. And we were eager to see our final fundraising total as schools are continuing to host events and sending in their sums. So we do generally want to say thank you to all our senators. And we also have extended the fundraising deadline to the end of May to allow more schools to continue their fundraising events. And social media posts will be made for schools who sent in their photos of their fundraising initiatives, which we'll share right now.
Yes, a bit of a preview because I still have to go into Photoshop and make those posts. But just to highlight a few of our schools, here we have one of our student senators, Charlotte Smith, who submitted a photo from Athens District High School. It was, I think it was a popcorn fundraiser that they put together for their school, like a nice stand they had to give a bit of popcorn, because who doesn't like popcorn? And if you don't like popcorn, well, we did have cotton candy over at Carleton Place High School. They were another one of our schools that did put together. There was quite a few food-based initiatives, which was great, and very easy and fun way to generate cash. Moving over to Brockville Collegiate Institute, and I'm going to specifically highlight that school because they were able to contribute $2,000. And if you're wondering how did they manage to raise that amount of money, it's because people really like taping people to walls, as is evident by the photo that we have here. I believe it was various staff and students who were brought onto those walls, and overall you can tell that there was a lot of great success. And we had one last fundraiser from Seaway District High School, if you want to elaborate on that.
Okay, Seaway District High School hosted a live cake auction. It was the first time in a few years, however, it was incredibly successful and it was food-centered, which may have helped. And at this fundraiser, we had an incentive that if we reached our goal of $300, that we would paint or will dye two of our teachers, so our English teacher and guidance counselor's beards purple, and it turned out very neon purple. And we would also paint our Principal Carter Edwards, and Chio makeup, and I will say he was very glowy at the end of that makeup session. And we also surpassed a goal. We reached $500, and we're incredibly proud of our Seaway community for doing so.
And as the member of the board that currently sports the most facial hair, I believe, I just wanted to say that, unique events like that really bring students together. It's, it seems odd, but at the same time, these ways, they're just quirks that do definitely bring our student body together and feel like they are part of one cohesive unit. And as a cohesive unit of our board as well, bring everyone together towards this common cause.
Okay, our Student Equity and Inclusion Committee updates. So this meeting was March 21st, which featured a breakout session. So at this meeting, we recognized a special recognition day of March 21st, which is World Down Syndrome Day. We explored this year's theme of End the Stereotypes and supported conversation recognizing how individuals with Down syndrome are often treated as less or incapable due to their diagnosis. However, alongside the proper support from their friends and family and community, they can achieve their personal potential and fulfill their ambitions, goals, and lead an incredible life. More of an emphasis was placed and shared with the committee on how proper education regarding stereotypical treatment of people with Down syndrome is progress towards eliminating harmful and disrespectful treatment of those with the syndrome and create a more understanding and supportive school environment and society, rather one that unfairly underestimates. Further, we recognize significant faith days and their religious and cultural importance for diverse communities. So in this meeting, we recognize Holi, which took place on March 25th and is a popular and significant Hindu festival, celebrated as the Festival of Colors, Love, and Spring. We also recognize Good Friday, which took place on March 29th and is a religious holiday observed by Christians. And we also recognize Easter Sunday, which took place on March 31st, which is an important and joyous holiday in Christianity as well. Furthermore, we had a presentation on defining and preventing bias to encourage inclusion. So for the defining part, we're going to recognize microaggressions, which are subtle actions or comments that convey negative messages towards often marginalized communities. And we also recognize unconscious bias, which refers to attitudes or stereotypes that affect understanding and decisions in an unconscious manner. We explored how defining these prejudiced actions and perspectives towards diverse communities through education in classrooms and personal learning can lead to a more inclusive and safe society that allows individuals to reach their full potential unhindered by hidden or subtle yet damaging comments. We also explored bystander intervention and how intervening in a situation, if it is safe to do so, can challenge negative social values and promote positive social change. Further, we discussed the concept of intentional inclusion, recognizing active efforts made to ensure that all individuals, regardless of their background and identity, feel valued, respected, and accepted in their school, environment, and community. Furthermore, we introduced our collaboration group coordinators. So we are very lucky to have Ashley Wallace from Charlotte District High School as the coordinator for the Race and Religion Collaboration Group. We also have Devin Terrell, also from Charlotte District High School, and Taylor Brown from Russell High School as the 2S LGBTQIA+ collaboration group coordinators. These individuals are incredibly passionate, and their leadership roles and ideas in this committee are incredibly valued. It has been extraordinary already working alongside them in these collaboration group sessions. So in our breakout session, we also had a few important topics we discussed. So we discussed the process of name changing and identifying your preferred pronouns in schools and through school administration. We also recognize community actions that support Pride, such as Pride crosswalks and Pride figures. We also recognize equity groups such as diversity clubs and rainbow coalitions within our schools. And we also acknowledge World Hijab Day and the Race Lunch and Collaboration Group.
On to our April 11th regular meeting, we did have discussion on the special recognition of the International Day of Pink, which took place on the 10th of April, as well as significant fete days, including Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramzan for Muslims, that took place on April 10th, as well as Vaisakhi, which took place on April 13th. And on to that, we also had the introduction of our equity education partners, various partners in Eastern Ontario that we brought to our equity reps that can support learning and actions regarding a wide variety of diverse equity topics. Combining this advocacy with education, we were able to create connections between various real-world learning initiatives and equity initiatives that took place within various schools. And finally, we decided to disseminate some resources and registration information for Moose Hide Campaign Day. And this campaign that took place, it's a grassroots movement that addresses the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. It's a movement that's deeply rooted in Indigenous traditions and is centered on healing. It includes participants wearing a small piece of moose hide as a symbol of their commitment to ending violence against Indigenous women and girls. This moose hide, it signifies a medicine for the social illness of the epidemic of these missing and murdered Indigenous women. The campaign, it creates discussions, it encourages education, which forms a sense of solidarity and action to urge communities and institutions to confront various systemic issues and aid in the efforts of reconciliation.
So our next
Okay.
So our next Student Equity Inclusion Committee will be on May 9th, tomorrow, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We'll explore the importance and resources for Asian Heritage Month, which is the month of May, as well as Indigenous History Month and Pride Month, which will occur in June. We'll also recognize Red Dress Day, which took place on May 5th, and our schools have honored this key day of awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. This meeting will also feature the last breakout session for the 2023 to 2024 Student Equity Inclusion Committee year.
And just to kind of jump into our roadmap as we turn more of these bubbles green, looking into after Senate bylaw reform, election reform, a bit of Senate outreach projects, our Senate fundraising being complete with an invisible asterisk there, because we're still encouraging schools to continue bringing in fundraising and institutional memory. We want to continue to document Senate activities, develop a more cohesive framework. This was done in our discussions with our student Senate, seeing what they want future years to look like, for instance, and as well as documenting some of the design work that we've done, as well as the cohesive branding that we had for our student Senate this year, and ensuring that those new student trustees and senators can be adequately caught up with the role. So maybe even creating information that can be passed on from year to year. And with that concludes another one of our reports, with a few more to come for the month and a half that we have left in these terms. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, and great work on the fundraiser. Well done. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead. Vice Chair.
This is not through you, Chair. This is not a question. This is a comment. When you were talking about having the YouthNet from CHEO speak to the senators, I noticed that was probably the most involved, the most questions that your senators were bringing up, and were really involved in that. And I looked it up just out of interest and saw that the people that do that are all between the ages of 20 and 30. And they service 13 to, I think, 20-year-olds. And I just wondered how you felt about it, because as an observer, I thought that they were really engaged and interested, and it was a good back and forth there. Was that how you felt?
Through your chair, yes, I do believe that it was a welcome discussion among our senators, and I was really glad at the level of participation and really the deep insights that they did have among senators. Like whenever we booked this session, it was just an initial call. I was in my school's library, and I stumbled upon it, and I realized, hey, this would be a great opportunity to bring to our student senators. And when I heard workshop, I thought, it was going to be a pretty straightforward discussion. Here are some points you can do to help your students out. But it became more of a conversation than a lecture, which I really enjoyed. And they opened it up with a great icebreaker, rather unique one. And being able to see what the senators did and, the actual discussion that was had, that was great to see. And it shows, the level of involvement these senators have as well within their respective school communities and the genuine passion that they do have to bring. And that's a passion that we hope continues. We saw a little bit staggered during the pandemic, but has certainly started to rebound and hopefully gets passed on.
I was just curious because I really noticed that as just sitting there, that they were more involved and they were really coming up with good questions and insights, and they weren't shy. And it was spread around the room, not just a few people. It was coming from a lot of your schools. So well done on booking that one.
Any other questions? Thanks again for that report. Moving on to item 10, we have the information and correspondence, and take a look at those at your convenience. Item 11, we are moving into private session. So I have two motions, moved by Trustee Danaher and seconded by Trustee McDonald, that the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole. Please cast your vote online. And that motion carries. Motion 2, moved by Trustee Labonte, seconded by Trustee McAllister, that the Committee of the Whole move into private session. Please cast your vote online. And that motion also carries. So while staff leaves, except for those who are required in private session, we will take a very brief 3-minute recess.
I have a conflict of interest, so on one of them.